All right. Well, what are the rumors? What are we breaking down
here? A lot of stuff flying around at the moment. So obviously, a lot of it is focused on the top of the draft, where we've talked about it a lot. But let's start with Schefter had this big. Schefter's been pushing for a while that a couple of things that are connected. Number one, Bryce Young is the guy at number one. This is now, the odds have swung back from CJ Stroud when they traded to number one, Carolina from number 9. And now it's swung all the way back to Bryce Young, who is becoming a prohibitive favorite at this point. Schefter's been on for a while saying Bryce Young is their guy at number one. That's the pick. It's basically a done deal, even to the point of saying CJ Stroud is visiting Carolina effectively to try and change their mind. Like they're done. He's also been saying we might see a quarterback slide from that point on. Like teams are looking at this as Bryce Young and then a gap. And the Colts, sitting at 4, might pick the second quarterback in this draft.
The Colts might get the second quarterback.
Yeah. So Houston at number 2 passes on a QB. Arizona at number 3 passes on a QB, obviously, but more importantly, doesn't trade to anybody looking for a QB. Indianapolis sitting there at 4 with, to be fair, a fairly long history of sort of saying, no, you don't necessarily need to trade up. You can get, are actually going to be proven correct, and they can sit there at 4 and get the second quarterback off the board.
Every year I am guilty of buying into all the rumors. Completely guilty of it. So, but this year I don't know if I feel that or not. But there's a lot around Houston saying, they're not going to take a QB.
Well, that's been there for a while.
But this is Schefter now backing it up. It
people
started with
it
other
for a while.
people.
Lance Zierlein was hard on it for a decent period.
He said he wasn't predicting it though. He was just kind of, I think his was more thought exercise.
Yeah, but he wasn't predicting it in a specific mock draft, but he has, I think, since said that this is a very real thing. And I think that's particularly connected with the idea that Bryce Young is now favored to go number 1. I think it's a different conversation if Bryce Young is available at number 2. But if he's gone, I think the Texans passing on a QB at 2 is a very real possibility.
Did I tweet the right link out?
Probably not.
I don't know if I did. Do we have the right link? Yeah, I don't know, man. Listen, I know we generally say always draft the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But that is also implying that you're willing to draft a quarterback next year. Like if I'm the Texans, I would draft CJ Stroud, because if for whatever reason I have a bad season and I'm in position to draft Caleb Williams or Drake May next year, I would draft them next year. I know that most NFL teams don't think like that. And there are rare cases, very rare cases, where you're going to draft a quarterback in the first round back-to-back years. And it almost takes extremes, right? It was the Cardinals with Josh Rosen, who had the worst season in the NFL as a first-round rookie. And then they got the number 1 overall pick where Kyler Murray was there. And even though he's short too, we had been past that, and he was a high-end prospect. So I don't think it wasn't crazy for the Cardinals to do that. So a lot of NFL teams they're like, I'd rather have Will Anderson this year and maybe we end up with a different quarterback next year. But I also know the Texans aren't expecting to be picking 1 or 2 next year. So I don't know how you balance that. Then you have some people out there who are like, Davis Mills has the same stats as Justin Fields. They're the same guy.
Yeah, I mean, the gamble for them is essentially it's losing out on the Will Anderson part of it. Because remember, they have that first pick. They have a number 12 overall as well. So particularly if we're looking at this landscape now, and there was a time where it looked like a real possibility that the quarterbacks might go 1, 2, 3, 4 for the first time, I think, ever. That is kind of gone, and we're now saying the prevailing narrative at the moment is actually they're going to slip. It's not going to be quarterbacks 1, 2, 3 or quarterbacks 3 guys in the top 5 or whatever. It's going to be quarterback number 1, and then we might see a slide amongst the next 3 guys. So if you're Houston, you're saying, well, okay, forget what we want to do at number 2. Other teams are not as enamored by this quarterback group, and they might slip. All of a sudden, you're saying you can potentially, maybe not CJ Stroud, but you could get Will Anderson at 2 and potentially get a quarterback at 12, like whoever the last guy remaining or even the third guy remaining is. Still draft a QB at 12 just for the chance, that he turns into a superstar. And then if he doesn't, You roll through the season, and you still have a shot at getting one of those top two guys next year. Plus, you have Will Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, I brought this up a few weeks ago. Right? If we're not good at selecting quarterbacks, does it matter if you pick QB2 or QB4? And is that the Texan? Would that be the Texans' thinking there? It could be Levis at 12. It could be Anthony Richardson at 12.
Yeah,
I think of all the quarterbacks that drop, it's more like Anthony Richardson.
Well, that's one of the other rumors right now, is that actually the Levis hype is starting to pick up steam again. Now, all of a sudden, we've gone from everybody saying Levis is QB4, he's the worst guy, to Levis could go ahead of CJ Stroud. Where did I see that recently? That was somebody's mock draft recently that had Levis going with one of those top picks and CJ Stroud being the guy that slips.
Are we actually live?
Who knows?
That link still says we're waiting. I don't even know if this is if we're actually on. Somebody leave a comment if you can see us, because I can't.
Really? So the Will Levis thing. The Will Levis might actually be QB2. Like me and Mike have said all along, as it happens.
Isn't that because we're pairing teams here, that it's if Houston passes there's some sort of information that it's the Colts and Levis?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. But this is like what?
Do you see us live? Click on the link. I just see it says waiting.
Same.
But it could be my internet.
Oh, no, we are live. You see, I see it. This is what I've been saying for a while.
My whole internet's terrible. All right, sorry. Carry on.
Everybody doesn't view this quarterback class the same. It's starting to look like everybody kind of views it with Bryce Young as number one, which is not something that was the case a while ago. But after that, it seems chaotic. Teams are not going to view the next three guys the same. You can't, because they're so wildly different. You've got Anthony Richardson with literally unprecedented physical tools, rawness, inaccuracy, the whole dynamic of these toolsy quarterbacks over the last few years. What is that going to result in? Who knows? But teams are going to view that differently. You're going to see some teams buy into it 100% and think Richardson's a star. I can turn this guy into something special. You're going to see other teams go, that's like a third-round prospect. I don't want any part of it. Conversely, CJ Stroud. I mean, you only have to look at the differences of opinion between, guys like me and other people who are he's the best quarterback in the draft. He's Bryce Young, but with 6'3", right? And other people going, I've seen a lot of relatively concerning traits about his play. I'm not into that. So people are going to view Stroud differently. And then Will Levis, again, it's how much do you buy into 2021 versus 2022? All those kinds of things. It's going to be a complete spectrum of how teams view these guys. So despite there's 32 different views of that, but we know the order of the teams that are relevant. It's Houston at number 2. How do they view it? Arizona at number 3, less so because they're probably looking to trade, but the teams below that, the Raiders, how do the Raiders view this quarterback class? What do they think it looks like? Atlanta, these teams that are potentially in the quarterback market, it's all down to how they view those next 3 guys.
Is this going to be a lighter version of last year? Look, last year at this time, we were saying, hey, I think Kenny Pickett's going in the first. We think he's going as high as 6
right,
to the Panthers. And he ends up falling to the Steelers. He's the only guy that goes in the first. And that was it. What are you laughing at?
No, that's that's a...
And then the next quarterback didn't go till the 3rd.
Yeah. Last year is a good kind of cautionary tale for how the narrative before the draft can get out of control based off just the fact that it's quarterbacks. We thought we knew that because the quarterback position is so important, teams will inflate quarterback value. And maybe that happened, but it was only with Pittsburgh. Maybe everybody thought Kenny Pickett actually was a 2nd or 3rd round prospect, but the Steelers need a quarterback, so they drafted him at number 20 overall. But the gamble that we thought was going to be taken with at least Malik Willis, maybe not anybody else, but Malik Willis, I think there was talk of Desmond Ridder sneaking into the 1st round at one point as well. That never happened. Everybody was able to restrain themselves and say, no, these guys are marginal NFL prospects. Those guys are going in the mid rounds. And, they were 3rd round draft picks. Sam Howell slipped all the way to the 5th round. the outside of Kenny Pickett last year showed that teams are in fact willing to restrain themselves if they really don't think these guys are high-end prospects. Now, I think all three of the guys we're talking about are better than any quarterback from last year. Like Kenny Pickett, if he was your number one, I think all three, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson, are better prospects than Kenny Pickett was.